Good evening and welcome to Suffering in Silence with Minister Tia here on Afrobeat, Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We're here with you every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. Love Bay, we are continuing to rise out of the ashes together. Our topic on tonight is a continuation from a previous topic we started a few months ago, which is domestic violence on campus. So we have with us our co-host, Bob Wood. We have Maria Jordan, nursing instructor of Gwinnett Mercy University. Alyssa Fortunato, president of Morgan's Light Alliance Against Dating Abuse. And Brooke Balkowitz, president of the AAUW chapter. So, listeners, if you have any questions or comments for our guest or co-host, you can email us at sufferinginsilencedv@gmail.com, or you can also text us. I will get you that number in 1 second. It was not in front of me. But if you have resources that you would like to share with us as well, from your national, local level, or your country, community, local organizations, your faith community, you can also email us at sufferinginsilencedv@gmail.com. With that, Bob, I'm going to ask if you would first introduce yourself to our listeners, or not introduce, but just say hello again.
Hello, my name is Bob Wood, and I'm especially excited this evening because I've worked with all three of the ladies who are our guests this evening, and I'm very, very happy that they're here and proud to be a part of this evening. And welcome to everybody.
Thank you. So, ladies, if you would greet our listeners again, I would say Maria, Alyssa, and then Brooke.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maria Jordan, and I've been an instructor at Gwinnett Mercy University since 2014. And I'm just so grateful to be back again this evening with two of my fabulous students, Bob and you, Minister Tia.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa. I'm the founder and president of Morgan's Light Alliance at Gwinnett Mercy. We started the club in 2022, and it's been going strong ever since. So I'm excited to be back. Thank you so much for having us. So hopefully it'll be a good conversation.
Awesome.
For those who have tuned in last segment, hello again. And for those who have not, my name is Brooke Balkowitz. I'm a senior nursing major at Gwinnett and the president of the American Association of University Women. We kind of created our club, or our chapter rather, about 2020, I guess it was 2021. And kind of like Alyssa, we've been just kind of chugging along and doing great things. So very happy to be back, and I'm excited to see where tonight goes.
Thank you so much. So listeners, the number is 437-778-3299 if you want to text any questions or comments. I want to share, as usual, some resources, and then I'm just going to turn this over to Bob, and we will go from there. First, the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Their website is thehotline.org. Their phone number is 1-800-799-7233. And then we have Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, also known as RAIN. Their website is www.rainn.org. And then we have the Pennsylvania Coalition Against Rape, also known as PCAR. Their website is www.pcar.org, and their number is 1-888-772-7227. So again, our topic on tonight is a continuation of a conversation we started a few months ago, domestic violence on campus. And with that, Bob, I'll turn this over to you.
Okay, thank you. Real quick before we jump into it, I know everybody here is well aware, some people may not be who are in our audience, that Title IX is a law. It's a federal law put out by our Office of Civil Rights and U.S. Department of Education that makes mandatory on any university campus, college campus that accepts federal funding, investigations into allegations of sexual assault, sexual harassment, stalking, etc., but contained within every policy by law are excerpts from the Violence Against Women Act, which deals with domestic violence, dating violence, and stalking, which is why we're on this topic this evening. Okay. If you don't mind, I'm going to start with Maria and ask Maria a question real quick.
Oh my gosh.
You've been at Gwinnett since 2014. I was a Title IX coordinator for close to 15 years. How has the population in a college or university changed in that time frame from traditional to the non-traditional, and where, pardon me, where the domestic violence concept under Valwell will become important to the students, the student body?
That's a really interesting question. And I think the longer I've been with Gwinnett, the more tuned in I am to our population of students. And I feel like even the traditional students are not traditional, if that makes sense. You know, no matter what the age, no matter what the socioeconomic or the background, students come in to learn with their baggage, good, bad, or indifferent, And I think what's changing is the comfort level that people have, because I don't think that things have increased per se, but I think that people are comfortable. I hope they are anyway, because it seems they are comfortable coming to a counselor, coming to a teacher, going to a peer like Alyssa and Brooke, and sharing something's not right. I'm not feeling safe, whether it's personally or on the campus. So yeah, I rarely think of students as traditional, even when they come right in from high school.
Right.
I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Yeah, no, it does. And as you said, you made a very interesting point. Students come in carrying baggage, and recently the reporting seems to have gone up. Not necessarily that there's more of it, but there's a bigger comfort level with reporting. And I'm going to slide it over to either one of the two ladies, Alyssa or Brooke, whoever wants to come in on this. Organizations such as Morgan's Light, such as AAUW, how do you see them playing into that role?
I think, at least speaking from like the Morgan's Light standpoint, I think it just makes it more acceptable almost. It kind of destigmatizes it. So you, at least in the past, speaking about domestic violence or sexual assaults, there was a lot of, and not to say that there still isn't, which is a whole other topic, but there's a lot of victim blaming and shame with it. And I think having clubs like this on campus and having students that aren't afraid to speak out and say, there's people that have gone through this and there's resources for you and people that are here to support you wholeheartedly. I think it just gives students that sense of safety to come out about it, and that sense of, okay, this is something that happened to me or something that happened to a friend of mine or whoever, and that's not normal, but it's okay that it happened to me. It's not something that I'm going to be blamed for or something that I'm going to be, ostracized on campus because this happened to me. So I think just having these clubs, especially that are run by other students, it makes the student feel more okay with coming to either the clubs or faculty about it, because they just feel a little bit safer that they're not going to be judged about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with everything you said, Alyssa. And to even speak not only just as a club president on Gwinnett Mercy's campus, just as a 21-year-old with eyes and ears and perspective into our society and generation, I feel like we, as kind of like our Alyssa and I's generation, we're so open about speaking about these topics. And I think what's so important is having a conversation and talking about these things like rape, incest, domestic violence, suicide, kind of heavily stigmatized topics, just opening up the floor and having a conversation and sort of knocking down that stigma is what leads to people's comfort level rising with, hey, you know what, like you mentioned, Alyssa, this isn't right, this isn't normal, this is abusive, or I don't feel comfortable in this situation, and having the ability to come forth and tell somebody that is kind of step by step how you're able to eliminate and help people who are going through this.
Okay, very good. Tia, anything you want to jump in with real quick?
I have a question. I have a thought. Since there's a new Title IX coordinator coming in, are there plans to coordinate with the new Title IX coordinator, or do you have plans to catch this person up on your organizations, things that you have already done or what you may want to do in the future? Is that, I guess, is that something that's typical that should happen, and do you have plans to do that?
I know for me personally, the new Title IX coordinator just started on the 5th, so I was giving them the week to adjust, but I have plans to go into their office Monday morning.
Good answer. Good answer.
Yeah.
There with you. So Alyssa and I are both senior nursing majors, and this year, we just completed our second week. We kind of were hit with a new environment, so to speak, to kind of adjust to. So we're adjusting, and we've had a lot of change of power and positions at the university as a whole. So I think there's a big adjustment period. I can speak as a community. We're very involved with each other, and we advocate for communication, and I feel like we do a pretty good job at that. Just before you came on, Minister Tia, I was just talking about how I was planning on a big project for Gwynedd about providing a good space for lactation and breastfeeding, and I will be talking with the Title IX coordinator most likely next week, along with a couple other faculty members, just about different grants and such. So yes, to answer your question in a very long way, we are definitely planning on talking and updating and just kind of welcoming the new Title IX coordinator with open arms.
Okay. So Maria, in your position, your specific position, do you think it's important that you touch base with?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Okay.
Yes, as closely as we have been with Bob. I teach the behavioral health course where we talk about so many of these issues, and I really pride myself and my teaching partner on having that safe learning environment where people can bring their issues out as well as learn how to care for patients when they're nurses. So I'm going to also give that Title IX person a minute to settle down. I'm real quick to have people come into the classroom and introduce themselves, just like we would. And this is what I do. This is kind of the rights that you have.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, Love Bay. This is my thing. I jump on it really quick and just get things done. So.
I'm going to interject with an answer myself. Have a very nice lady coming in, Ms. Tia Brown. She's a very nice lady, very well prepared, very astute, knows what she's doing. I didn't give her a minute. I was there the second day. Hi, we're going to bring now, and we did, and that's. I think a lot of people don't understand Title IX gets complicated just in the volume of material the person has to work with. And the thing that's also difficult with Title IX, I call it a sea of chaos on the ever-shifting sands of political time. That sums up Title IX, because it changes constantly. You're constantly in a state of flux. And as of October, we were supposed to be getting new direction, but now the attorneys in Washington say, "Oh, we're not going to have it until May," and I'm well. That's good. We can get through another year at least on the same page. And it's it's nothing earth shattering, but when it impacts your process, you've got to do it quickly, and it makes it that much more difficult. But she was briefed. Second day there, 10 o'clock. Hi, I'm here. It's your office. But I kept going. Take the lead. But it is important that. That people do come in and meet with her. I mean, I'm going to back very quickly. When I came in, I was the first full-time Title IX coordinator. And it was kind of a gray area. Nobody was real sure where the office was going to go, how it was going to develop. And I had enough wherewithal that I walked department to department to department and introduced myself. Hi. And that was a good way to start. So that's a very important aspect to them. So another question for you though, Maria.
Okay.
Faculty, how can we improve the communication or the training that goes out to faculty in that aspect, do you think?
Well, Brooke had alluded to some new leadership, and I'm speaking of the nursing department. We have a new dean, and we have a new academic dean, assistant dean, for academic excellence. And it just feels like such a different environment in a most positive way, such receptivity in listening to faculty and listening to students. Brooke and Alyssa are two of our, we call 400 level, that's senior level representatives. And they bring student issues into our faculty meetings so that we can continue to talk. I know that our dean will invite the Title IX. I need to get to learn her name better, right? Tia Brown?
Tia Brown.
Tia Brown.
She has points already.
Right? Tia. Beautiful name. But to invite her to our faculty meetings. I could envision her coming to the general faculty meeting, which is all departments and all disciplines. Again, just to let people be comfortable with her and know that things are going to continue in the most beautiful way that you have laid the groundwork for.
Alyssa and Brooke, what improvements do you think need to be made student to Title IX level to the office? Feel free.
Well, I mean, I love this question because I already have kind of things that I've talked about with people, with DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, just kind of advocating for trainings and such. I personally think, and I'm not sure if this has been implemented or not. I know for the freshmen, we had to do a couple of like modules coming into the university. I personally think we should be trained newly every year on different modules and be required to be QPR trained, which if anyone's not familiar, that is question, persuade, and respond, I believe is the R, yes. React or respond. So that's a suicide prevention training. And it is a wonderful training. And I've personally used it quite a few times in my life, actually, since being trained. So things like that, being refreshed and trained on a student and faculty level, I'm not excluding faculty here. I think it's great to be, continue to have refreshers, whether it be annually or by every 2 years. But with you, oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought. So the QPR training, I think just every year, and especially for new faculty, it's great to kind of be oriented to our system and how we, run and be kind of up to date on, different programs and interventions and such.
Good.
Brooke, I was just going there with the QPR training because I just worked as an orientation leader at the end of August, and we had a whole week of all these different trainings that we had to do. And so many of them were so beneficial. And I know, normal students that are just coming into school every year don't have the time to sit for a whole week of trainings, which is totally understandable. But the QPR training, I think, would be so beneficial for every student to go through at least once in their 4 years of Gwinnett. But even just those modules that we do when we come into Gwinnett, I never understood why they weren't an every year type of module that you had to do. Because, if I wasn't involved in this club and I wasn't seeing the stuff as often as I am being involved in the things that I am at Gwinnett, I would never remember the things that Title IX does or what office, when I can use counseling and when I can't and things like that. And so having trainings on, the Title IX regulations and things like that, of just, even if it's just a short little 30-minute training every year that you have to do,
Mhm.
to be enrolled at Gwinnett. I never really understood why that wasn't a mandated thing for every year and not just coming into freshman year, because by senior year, I can guarantee you that probably 75% of the students, if not more, do not remember most of that training.
Alyssa, I feel like we're in the climate now where we can make these things happen. You know what I mean? And you're thinking already like nurses, because annually in a hospital, nurses have training on child abuse, on recognizing sex
Exactly.
abuse.
And that's what,
You know?
even as a nursing major, we need to get every year our child abuse clearance and our fingerprinting, everything like that. I'm like,
Yep.
why are more of these things not yearly?
I'm taking notes. I'm taking notes.
Good.
The next time we come back to you, we'll have some.
Awesome.
I'm going to interject because you brought up a very valid point. And as the person who was in that office, are you aware that every year those modules were made available to everybody?
I was not.
They were, yeah. they
Nor
went
was
out.
I. Nor
The-
was I. So now,
the-
opening our words and,
Yeah.
and making people aware of it. That's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, that was something that went out on the portal every year. The announcements were made. The issue that came around was with it under law, we have to offer it. You can't make somebody sit in the chair and take it. It then becomes up to the individual university, college, institution to set their policy and or standard. And that's where I don't want to say disconnect, but that's where the imbalance came in, because we did offer it and we had everything that was there that should have been there. Some people did, some people didn't, some people knew, some people didn't. And like I said, I know the announcements went out because that was part of the community, the conversations we've had ongoing for years. Quick and funny story. The first day I got there was a letter issued. I mean, I had just walked in. My name was on the letter because I was the new Title IX guy, that people who did not complete the modules would not be able to register for the second semester.
Oh,
And I met the entire faculty that day through the telephone.
Yeah.
And I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. So there was sort of that disconnect then. I mean, it was a right idea to try to make sure it was done, but it didn't get off the launch pad properly, if that makes sense.
So,
Yeah.
Bob, is it fair to say that I guess the first year this training is mandatory, and then after that it's available, but it's optional?
It's available, but optional. The one agency that does mandate it all the way through is the NCAA, believe it or not. They have a sexual assault prevention program that the athletic department, I had to sign off, the president signs off, and the athletic director signs off every year. And they have to go through and they have to participate throughout the year. I think that's another one, which I will let the floor address. Anybody in education, Maria, I know you will agree with me on this. One and done doesn't get it done.
oh gosh, no.
I'll open that up to the floor, and especially relate that to Title IX, domestic violence, dating, and an awareness of how it impacts and can impact a student. Open to the floor.
I mean, my rule is at least 3 opportunities to share information for it to really begin to sink in. I couldn't agree more with that.
Mm-hmm.
And the growing application of what you're learning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been trained in QPR training now at least 2 or 3 times. And I think that's why I'm so familiar with it, just because I've seen it, like you said, multiple times.
Mhm.
And because of that, that's why I feel so comfortable with it. And I'm able to, question somebody and say, hey, are you having thoughts of harming yourself? And I'm able to kind of bring that up and then not even intervene, but just kind of, give somebody the direction they need to go in order to help them with that. So I think, and again, with the nursing point, you get it's pretty much the same trainings. It's always up to date. So if there's a change in regulation or policy, it will be up to date, but it's pretty much the same trainings annually. And so the more you see it, the more you know it, the more you engage, and the more comfortable you are with it. So I would definitely agree with that point.
Could you imagine if we learned CPR one time?
Right.
I actually just had my recertification in CPR, and I went back and I was like, oh my gosh, like certain things, like the big things you obviously still remember, but the little tiny things that you pick up on, and I'm like, oh, I forgot that little tip or trick. And even like super important things like that. So then you have the little things that you and I work in a hospital. So these are things that I encounter on a daily basis. So then you get these trainings that you're not encountering on a daily basis, like maybe Title IX training or domestic violence, signs of abuse in a relationship that students or faculty aren't dealing with on a daily basis. And you get the training once in freshman year and then never see it again. By the time, if you ever, God forbid, had to deal with a situation like that in senior year and you haven't seen the training since freshman year, how much of that training are you really still going to remember?
I'd like to also, sorry, real quick, Anne, I'd also like to point out the growth between a freshman in college and a
Oh,
senior in
absolutely.
college. I know it doesn't sound significant, as it's typically, if we're talking traditional students, 18 roughly to about 21, 22, but there is a significant growth in maturity and awareness and perspective of just kind of those 3-4 years through college that I think people, it would sort of like trainings would sink in a little bit more and kind of mean a little bit more as you age and as you go through college.
You must have known me in my freshman year. I was describing the train wreck looking for a place to happen. Yeah, no, and you make an absolutely valid point. There's definitely a growth in maturity, a growth. I think there's also a growth in the awareness of the need to be receptive to the information.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it's fair to say, in most of our orientations, by the time the poor freshman gets through orientation, they're shell shocked because there's just so much coming at them, and sometimes less is more and more is less, in my opinion. But I think that's a very valid point. My question is, for any university, because I'm sure there may be other people out there listening who may be up against the same hurdle, how do you feel the university can or should make it more accessible to the students? What would be the better vehicle? Would it be a speaker? Would it be special events? Walk a mile in or shoot? No, things of that nature. What's your opinion?
I mean, I think for me personally, those like special events where you have a speaker or you have someone that comes in that shares, that makes it personal. I think if you can make the information personal, that's when it sticks. Like I know when we had Allison come speak, like that her whole speech still sticks with me, and that was what, 6 months ago. So when you have someone that comes and shares either their story or the story of a friend, or and mixes like the statistics and the facts and the things that need to be shared in with it, but even if the student takes nothing away but that personal side of it, it still is going to, when it happens in the future, if they need a piece of that information, they're going to say, oh, you know what, I remember this person told their story and this is what they did. So they still are getting something out of it. So and even those events, the Walk a Mile in Our Shoes or the Take Back the Night events that Gwinnett does, they can say, oh, you know what, like I remember at this event they talked about counseling there, so I can go to there and you can figure it out from there. At least that first step that students can take, and you can always figure it out from there. But
I mean, to piggyback off of that, I think to kind of put it in broader terms and speaking from perspective, what I've seen and what I've encountered, people are more receptive if you come to them. That's how you first, like, a lot of people who I talk to, for instance, in the nursing program and a couple years under, a year under, they are kind of have these questions. And when I make myself available to them and say, hey, I'm here if you need anything. Oh, do you know about this? Do you know about that? They said, oh my gosh, I didn't know how to take notes. And that's so awesome that, you just said that. Like, I'm definitely going to reach out in the future, or just kind of like making yourself available. So with that note, Alyssa, just having a speaker or having the Title IX coordinator coming into each classroom where people are together, where they have to be together at a convenient time, and just saying, hey, I'm here and this is me, this is what I do, and come to me if you need. Here's where I'm located. I think that it is what helps with comfort level. And then after that is where people start to feel more comfortable to say, hey, I'm actually going to use that resource that they just showed me, instead of having to kind of search out and almost like a scavenger hunt on the portal sort of situation. Like, I feel like it's just more receptive that way.
Can I add to that, Bob?
Yes, ma'am.
I do have a question, but just to add to that, first, Brooke, I love the point that you made of the maturity from a freshman to a senior. That's a beautiful point. But I think it's something that would be helpful would be the use of technology, in a sense that most of the younger people today like make use of chat. Like I prefer conversation face to face. We're in the same room, but a lot of young people today, they're on their phones and they like using the texting or the chatting. So if there was a specific person or group that a chat or a text could be sent to, and they're replied, and it's like a one-on-one conversation via text that way, that any questions could be asked and answered. I think that that's something that would be useful. Just the way that I say kids, because I'm an older adult, but just the way kids communicate today. I think some of our younger people like to be able to email a question or text a question and get a response back. Now, I think it's very important that there not be a huge lapse in time between the time a question is asked and they receive an answer. So if it's immediate, I text you and you text me right back, so I can ask my questions and get more information. I think that that's something that could be made use of. So that's my 2 cents on that.
No, that makes perfect sense. I'm gonna interject from, pardon me, my point of view from 2 careers, Title IX coordinator career and my former career as a police officer. Texting, I think it's great, and I actually, as a Title IX coordinator, I have asked. You all know this. If you've worked with me, everybody has my phone number. Some people go, "Oh my God," and I go, because I know people will call and they need to talk at certain times. But there's also, and the universities need to be aware of this, if it's something related to an inquiry or something that's going on, that material can be subpoenaed if the whole thing ends up in court. And I am a strong advocate for Title IX coordinator has, in the military, we call it a duty phone. Here it is, as opposed to using their personal phone. But I'll let you guys work on that, and you can work through Morgan's Light and AAUW to make that point, and the nursing program as well, because nobody wants their private chats in a courtroom. But coming back full circle, where with the understanding of domestic violence, most people, when you say domestic violence, dating violence, they look for the physical.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a fair statement. They look for the physical. From a nursing perspective and getting it out there, let's talk about the psychological, the economic, those impacts. How often do you think, have you as a professor seen that coming into the university level now?
Well, I think perhaps because of the subject I teach, I may see it more than other instructors, maybe more science teachers, that sort of thing. But I have definitely had students that have felt comfortable enough sharing with me the very things that you're talking about, juggling nursing school while in a situation of domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
One young lady calling me from a parking lot kind of furtively, because that's the only time that she really could speak to me. And then I was able to hook her up with counseling and some services that way. Mm-hmm. But yes, absolutely. That's one thing I'm really proud with Morgan's Light, that the meetings are not just kind of business meetings, but they're educational in nature, so that the members that come will hear topics like, what are the signs? Like what, and realizing, oh, it's not just physical. There's so much more to it.
Good. That's excellent. Lissa?
So I was actually just going to say, so our first meeting for Morgan's Light, is going to be September. And the one thing that we kind of use when we look at, or when we do these education meetings, is we look at the power and control wheel,
Yeah.
which anyone who's not familiar with, it is a wheel that looks at all the different types of dating abuse or domestic violence. So it looks at still your physical abuse or sexual abuse, but it also looks at things like isolation, or we specifically look at like a teen or young adult one. So it looks at things like peer pressure, or isolation, intimidation, using like social status against people, or like threats. So we try and still educate people that it's not always that typical of what we think of when we think of domestic violence, of, you know, your physical, sexual, verbal, even verbal abuse. It can be just that you are being isolated, or that you just feel intimidated in some way, even if it's not actually like a verbal intimidation. So I feel like it's just important that people are educated that those are still very valid forms of abuse.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, I think I agree with everything you said. And to add, I think what now we really need to not necessarily focus on, but take into account is technology, and
Mm.
how we are such a technologically involved society right now, that a lot of abuse can happen over the phone and within relationships with social media, and controlling who you talk to over the phone. And isolation can happen not only in person, but also in media, and like I said, over the phone, and who you talk to going through people's cell phone. There's a lot of opportunity, so to speak, for abuse and abusive situations involving media and cell phone usage. So I think we definitely need to educate and advocate for the warning signs of those specifically as well.
Good. I think you touched on something, and I know you guys remember my presentations where I had the guy with the hood at the computer, the cyber stalking, and how out of control it has gotten. And as you say, with the telephone and the cell phone, inside the institution itself, trying to get that message out, because as you said, everybody is technological. Again, I think you're right on that. Using technology to combat that is probably the best way to go, because you're trying to make that point. Thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. And just again, I feel like a lot of people, if they are more familiar with just physical abuse, they're familiar with verbal, emotional, physical. They might not see different behaviors via cell phone as concerning as somebody being physically hurt or verbally abused. So I think education is definitely the first step to that, and like making people aware of what those signs are.
I'm going to throw a little quick caveat, if I may, Tia, and then I'll open up for you. I'll take over. We've microscoped down to talking about the University of Gwinnett, but what we're talking about here is these are symptoms of domestic violence worldwide. This is not just an area. No matter where you go in this world, what we have discussed: isolation, verbal abuse, economic domestic violence, physical, etc. It is worldwide. And now myself, I've gone on the United Nations and looked at the charter several times about how they're addressing it, and I think that's something more people here also need to understand. In fact, we all know that some places they don't have the laws, excuse me, the laws to deal with it that we do have here, which further complicates the issue in some areas. But Tia?
Thank you. So, Alyssa, a few moments ago, you mentioned faculty. And so I think, Maria, I want to ask you this question first. So we're talking about domestic violence on campus. And whenever we talk about campus, whenever we talk about schools on any level, my first thought is always the students. I always think about the students first. But we do know and understand that domestic violence touches and affects everyone. So with that being said, we know that AAUW and Morgan's Lights is there for the students. So Maria, I would ask you what type of program, if any, is available for faculty, or if faculty will be able to receive the services of Morgan's Light and AAUW, because we know that there are professors dealing with issues just as well.
I think that's a really beautiful question. Um, the beginning of this semester has seen a change in what we call an alert system. Okay, so in the past we had an academic alert where if a student was in trouble, with their grades, we could trigger that. And then there was something called a care report. And if a student was having, kind of emotional issues or anxiety, stress, what have you, we could trigger that report. Now there is a combination of report. And I know you asked me about staff, but what I think, we don't have anything per se like a club or a group. We support each other, I think, pretty beautifully, but that's very informal. And I'm talking about nursing. I can't speak campus wide.
Mm-hmm.
But truly, if we saw a fellow faculty person, or even if a student saw a faculty person looking like they were struggling for some reason, anybody could start that report. And it's right on our portal. And it goes to the counseling center, and it goes to, our vice president of that service. So, I would much rather go to the individual and try to help them and work with them like I could. But if someone were not comfortable with that, I think that's a process that really could be used for faculty as well.
Okay. And so even with that, I think that sounds like a good idea. But on the other side, when you deal with friends and family who want to support the one who may be a victim or a survivor, or who maybe even want to support or need more information dealing with the one who may be the abuser or perpetrator, is Morgan's Light or AAUW prepared to provide support for family and friends as well?
Like family and friends of students, do you mean?
Of the students. So, and I mean, and just thinking about my, early days of Drexel University, like everybody traveled in packs. like we were together. Like what happened to one happened to the group. It affected us all. So, there was an issue that one was dealing with, like we all tried to work through that together. So, dealing with domestic violence does not just affect one person or two people. There's usually a circle around.
Right.
So if someone in that circle who's not the victim or who's not the perpetrator, and if they needed some questions answered, or if they needed to just decompress, get some things off of their chest, would they have an opportunity to come into your organization and say, I need someone to talk to?
So speaking at least from Morgan's Light, we would do absolutely everything we can for both the student and the family. There's only so much we can do helping them ourselves. A lot of what we do is kind of helping refer them to who they need to go to. And we will go with them if they want us to. We will just guide them if that's what they need to. Provide them as much support or as little support as they need along the way. But we will absolutely give both the student and their family resources, whether that's resources in Gwinnett or resources in their community, that they can use both for the student that either is the survivor or the abuser and their family or anyone else that was impacted by it. So we can absolutely help them, even if it's not us necessarily being the ones that are directly able to help them throughout the whole process, at least giving them resources that are able to help them.
Before I answer this question, I would like to apologize. I want to give everyone the correct information who's listening. It is refer, question, persuade, refer, not respond. I always get the R mixed up, but you said the word refer, and it just kind of a light bulb went off. It is refer because, to your point, Alyssa, like you said, I'm very confident that if somebody, no matter who they were, came to myself or Alyssa and said, I need help, with X, Y, or Z, we could direct them to the appropriate place where they can get the most help possible. And if we don't know the answer, I'm confident that we could find the answer. And we have people that we know on campus or in the community who we've worked with. I know I've personally worked with the Peyton Hart Project, wonderful organization. They work with suicide prevention. I've worked with the Montgomery County Crisis Hotline. Again, wonderful, wonderful organization. I've actually referred that information to people to use, and that has been successful. So again, if somebody came to us and we didn't know the answer, we would find the answer and we would pass along whatever information that we know in order to get help for that person. Because again, we're not certified. I mean, we're nursing students. We do know a lot, but there is only so much clinically that we are able to do. We are not able to treat on site. We are not able to, diagnose things or arrest somebody, but we have the resources where we can lead that person to where they need to be.
And I'm going to interject on that one because, again, and there's where my desire, and I pass that desire on for more communication, because if you do go on our website, there are sections under the Title IX page where there are referrals, as you had just sent, but there are also suggestions for if you are a friend and a friend comes to you, and it's laid out step by step by step. If it's a family member, if it's a faculty member, and I know that communication needs to improve, but it is there. So, Tia, go ahead. I didn't mean to jump in there.
Oh no, I have one more question. So we know October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and the school year just, I want to say across the country, is just starting. We're fall. So do you have any plans as of yet for any events or anything specific that your organizations would do in October, or are you planning for anything coming up in April?
So for Morgan's Light, at least, we are actually, tonight is the last night of voting for it. But we are doing currently a t-shirt design contest. And then we will be selling those t-shirts throughout the entire month of October. So all of the funds from that will go to Morgan's Light, that then goes to raising awareness for domestic violence, for resources in the community. So all those funds will go towards that. And then we're also doing an event in April for Denim Day. So it's to raise awareness for sexual assault. It is April 24th, I believe. So we're going to have a table set up on campus for the week with a pair of denim jeans that people can sign and write positive messages on. And we're going to have information flyers that people can take with resources for domestic violence and sexual assault. And then after I meet our Title IX coordinator, I'm going to ask her if they can be displayed out front of the Title IX office for next year. So
awesome.
Those are just a couple of the many events that we have planned, but some good things planned for this year.
Keep the ball rolling.
Yeah, and definitely, give us the information. We will absolutely share it. Anything that's coming up, we will absolutely share the information. Brooke?
Yes. So while Morgan's Light is more so focused solely on domestic and dating violence, AUW, on the other hand, kind of covers a very broad range of topics. So Alyssa and I have been speaking, and we're kind of in the works of coming up with different collaborative ideas who do different events on campus. I know personally, Take Back the Night is in April, and typically, and I will most likely be a part of that. I don't want to speak for the entirety of AAUW because although Take Back the Night is a wonderful, great event, it can be triggering to some who have had previous experiences, as we do share pretty graphic stories, and so we don't require as a club for members to participate in that. If they want to come, if they want to share or just be a part of the event, they're more than welcome to, but it's not necessarily like AUW is hosting this. This is a member sort of thing. It's for anybody who wants to come, get information, share, and be present. So that's our big event, so to speak, for domestic violence.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bob. Yeah,
That's good. Well, I'm going to go out off my limb. I'm going to dive off the cliff. And speaking for Rising Out of the Ashes, you know how to get a hold of us. Any event where you want us or some type of representation, all you got to do is either poke Tia or I, and we'll make it happen for you. That's a promise.
Yeah.
So, what I'd like to do, and because again, we're talking about if a friend comes to you or another faculty member or family member or whatever, is the importance of that first step. And I used to preach this, especially when I was, training investigators. That first step, that listening, is so important in the rest of the healing journey. As a Title IX person, I was trained in FETI, which is the forensic experiential trauma interview technique and things of that nature. In the nursing program, because frequently nurses, especially in emergency rooms, are that first step. They are that first listener. Maria, can you explain a little bit how that interview technique or whatever comes into some of the training nurses receive?
Sure. In behavioral health, we've been doing a simulation experience.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them is, working with someone who's hallucinating, who's psychotic. But the other one that might be more pertinent to this discussion is interviewing someone who is feeling hopeless and trying to, discern, is this person actively suicidal? And how do you ask these kind of questions? It's such an anxiety. I remember even many moons ago as a nursing student, it was one of the most anxiety producing things to talk to someone who was in that fragile state and to worry, like, am I going to say the wrong thing? Am I going to make them more upset than they are? So I think that can be, and hopefully Alyssa and Brooke, you can share your experience with it as well. But I think that it's a really great opportunity to practice in a safe environment. Mm-hmm. And we have faculty. I myself have been an actress at times. Other times I'm the facilitator. But and the students will say, wow, this felt like real life. Mm-hmm. And it does. It really does. So I think that, besides the classroom and the textbooks and all that sort of thing, the actual working it out. And then when students are on the clinical unit, they encounter individuals that have had all kinds of issues. Mm-hmm. So being able to talk with them. And I can tell you, as a former clinical instructor, those patients open up so much more to nursing students than they do many times to the nurses, because there are the most kind eyes, that open posture. And the students are so nervous, like, I'm going to say the wrong thing. But guess what? They're not saying anything. They're having that beautiful silence where the person can really express themselves and feel safe and not judged. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Alyssa, Brooke, any experience with that or any input on that?
I actually work in an ER, and I recently had the very unfortunate and sad, but very privileged opportunity to sit in on a triage of a patient who had been experiencing abuse. Mm-hmm. And they had a SANE nurse come in, which is a sexual assault nurse examiner. Mm-hmm. And I just sat and, glued to the corner, as they say, and watched this interview triage process. But that experience was that nurse is a special, beautiful type of silence that she gave that patient. That, we learned in behavioral health to listen, and it always felt a little strange to me to just sit there and like stare at the patient. And I was like, this feels so uncomfortable. Like, I know this is what I should be doing, but it feels so uncomfortable to not ask questions and just sit there. And you feel like you're going to say the wrong thing or ask the wrong thing and make them feel worse. But just watching it from this like outside perspective, really, I was like, this is such a beautiful thing to watch, because when you're in it, it's horrifying and it's so scary, because like I said, you feel like you're going to say that total wrong thing. But seeing it from that outside perspective, you realize that person that is telling the nurse or the friend or the family member this thing truly just wants to be heard, and wants to feel like they are being listened to. So as awkward as it may feel to just sit there and listen, and it was such a beautiful thing to watch. So that's it. There's really nothing you could say that is going to make the situation worse, because the person really just wants to feel heard and feel like they're being listened to.
Very good.
Yeah. I could honestly probably talk myself for another hour about this topic. I use therapeutic communication in every single day of my life, and I credit Maria Jordan to that completely. That is one of the, not that almost everything didn't stick with me in behavioral health, but my goodness, did that stick with me. And I have used that countless times over and over and over again in every single situation that I can, and it has done me wonders. And I'm gonna keep it nice, sweet, and short, because Alyssa, you covered on a lot. But my favorite question to ask, and I encourage everyone who's listening to start asking this question: what do you need right now? Because I think that is such an important question. Whether it be they need silence, they need to cry, they need to hug, they need to, get angry. Like, asking that question of what do you need right now is so important. And being able to, give and help with that need, I think is, it's a very special thing to do, like you said, Alyssa. But I always ask that question. And a lot of people, they use language like, oh, it's okay, it'll be okay. It's not okay. 9.9999999 times out of 10 in these situations that people are coming to you with, it's not okay. It's a very terrible thing that just happened to them. And it's okay to not be okay sometimes. But what can we do, and what do you need right now to, be on the mend and fix this situation? So that's what I have to say about, I love therapeutic communication.
Excellent. You've all made an absolutely brilliant point that there's that sense of hopelessness. If it's something that was immediate, the one impact of trauma, i.e. a sexual assault, or the ongoing of dating or domestic violence, because normally people don't seek help on the first event in those situations. We know this, it builds, and there's been such a long period of not being heard, which just contributes to that sense of hopelessness. So I think that's absolutely brilliant, and that the nursing department is doing that is spot on, absolutely spot on. So that's great. Tia?
So I just wanted to say, ladies, that I just think the three of you really proved and validated that you can learn to listen.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe especially in the careers or positions of nurses, doctors, counselors, lawyers, especially if you are dealing with victims and survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, any trauma, you need to listen. And if you don't know how to, you can learn. Because, some individuals want to help by doing what they naturally do. and naturally you may ask questions, even if you think that they're comforting questions or sensitive questions, and you just want to get down to the issue and help. Sometimes it's not that. It's not you asking a question. It's not you even speaking. And so again, I think you just beautifully emphasized and proved that you can learn, and you should learn. So as we are at the hour, but and ladies, I already say, we would love for you to come back again.
Absolutely.
Again.
Absolutely.
But as we're ending, I want to give you all a moment to speak a final word to our listeners on what you would want to leave our listeners with. Those who may be students on campus, those who may have loved ones on campus, those who may even be thinking about going to college. I know that there are some individuals who are dealing with the trauma of stepping foot on campus because of issues that they've dealt with. There are some individuals who are dealing with even completing school online because they've been stalked online. So it's not easy. Everybody's in a different position. So I would ask each of you, what would you say to different individuals who may be coming or thinking of coming onto, or who may already be there on a college campus, be it live in person or virtually? So Maria, I would ask you first.
I think the two things I would like to emphasize are trying to get students to feel a sense, everyone, students, faculty, a sense of safety, and trying to get trust. Okay. So if people are coming in with anxieties for school alone, let alone for whatever they may be experiencing personally, for them to at least feel like the university setting is a safe one. And if at any time they're not feeling safe, there is someone that they can go to listen and to help them.
Thank you. Alyssa?
I think the biggest thing for me is that you are absolutely not alone. So find your resources on campus, even if you are going virtual. Email your professors, email, text friends on campus, find your Title IX office, counseling resources. No matter what that resource is for you, just know that you are not alone at that university, and use those resources to benefit you and to make that space as comfortable of a space as it can be so that you can succeed.
Thank you. Brooke?
You took the words right out of my mouth. So to kind of go a little bit of a different path, even if you aren't currently experiencing something as like we've talked about, or you haven't had an experience like that in the past, you can still do your part and you can still be there to support people and to help. And through these different resources and trainings and just educating yourself as to what your university has to offer. So not only you can be there for yourself, but others and your friends and the community around you.
And so, Bob, I would ask you to, close us out with your thought on that as well. Not only your experience as a Title IX coordinator, but your experience as an officer of the law, your experience in the law itself. And I love it when you say, just as enough to irritate lawyers.
I do.
With your experience in all of these different areas. And I would say also because of who Linda is, because of what Linda does and the experiences that Linda has brought to your life. What would you say? And Love Bay, Linda's Bob's wife.
Yeah, no, I actually, I always tell everybody, we could have been the TV show, A Cop and a Nurse. We spent the majority of our adult lives working with people who have been in some way, shape, or form traumatized. And then I went into Title IX And yeah, we do bounce things off of each other. Sometimes we have to take a step back and give each other the space, because sometimes when you're coming home and it's still with you, you're the one that needs to howl at the moon, so to speak. With me, I go downstairs and wail away on the heavy bag and get it out of my system. But no, that's important. The one thing that I do want to definitely say, in my 15 years, 14, whatever it was, of being a Title IX coordinator, it had its ups and downs, but nothing has ever made it not worth the young person that came up to me the first time I had a case, and it was very, very complicated. And there were some backwards and forwards. Through all of that, this is what I remember. Thank you. You're the only person who listened to me. That's how important that was. And I'm very, very pleased and proud to say all three of you have emphasized that all the way through. As the old guy here is riding off into the sunset on his horse, I'm very happy to say that since that time, to see where it has gone, because it has progressed. We are in a better situation or place than we were before. And I'm very, very happy to say that I know the hands that are taking over it, yours, that are taking over the lead now, are good hands, and people will be in good shape. And I expect that it will grow exponentially in your hands, because you guys are there. And I'm very proud to have known you. I'm very proud to have worked with you. And I'm like a bad penny. I'll roll around again. I will somewhere. I'll be back. But no, I applaud you. And Maria, I applaud you, because you're the one putting them out there.
What an honor it is.
It is. Yeah. And Tia, you're going to be nominated for sainthood for putting up with me.
I'm in line right after Linda.
There it is. But no, everything we spoke about tonight is just like I said, it's so important, and like I said, it's in good, and people, you're in good hands. And I think that's stressed when you're on campus, you are not alone. Yes. You are not alone. There's somebody there who will listen to you, and please seek them out. Please seek them out.
Yes. Thank you so much. And Love Bay, we just want to stress one more time. So Gwinnett Mercy University is in the United States. But we're not just speaking of, and I believe Bob made this point earlier, we are not just speaking of colleges or universities in the United States. It's in Canada, it's in Europe, all around the world. No matter where you are, every student should feel and be safe, if you're online or if you're in person. So whatever the equivalent of Title IX coordinator would be at your university, no matter where you are, reach out to that individual if you need help. Whatever the student counseling services would be, reach out if you need help. And absolutely whatever domestic violence agencies, national or locally, are near you, please reach out and get help if you need it. So again, we are not just focused on the United States. This is an issue that affects us all around the globe. And we thank you so much for being with us, for listening in. We hope that we helped just a little bit. We want to welcome you again to Suffering in Silence with Minister Tia. Thank you so much. If you want to listen to our previous episodes, you can visit our YouTube channel, Suffering in Silence TV. Thank you again for being with us on tonight on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We're here with you every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. Love Bay, we are continuing to rise out of the ashes together. Good evening.
Good night.